Welcome to PredWings Podcast, where Smashville and Hockeytown collide. And now your hosts, Rhett and Ron White and D-Law, Dan Lawless. Welcome to PredWings Podcast, episode 113. It's been a while since I've said that. It's been too long.
Better late than never, D-Law.
Our social media, PredWings Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, which is actually not PredWings Podcast anymore. And X, we're at PredWings Pod, and you can always listen and follow us on Podbean. And our email is predwingspodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, it's been a heck of a month. We got a lot to cover. So before we get into that, let me just go into a little break here. Sports fans, watch live on YouTube Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. to get caught up on all the big sports events and news as D-Law breaks down the big stories and news. Follow and subscribe to Sports with D-Law on YouTube at PredWings Podcast, and catch us on Facebook and X at Sports with D-Law. Actually, just a little reminder, normally it's 7 p.m., but the next few weeks it's going to be at 6:30, so now we got that out of the way. There's so much to
Any
deal
beer
with.
league minutes?
We haven't had that in about a month. I think our last show was our last. Actually, I don't think we had one our last show because we've been on. Our season was over in March, or I think it was the end of March. I don't know. It's been a long time. Last show we still had the Wings and Preds they still had a few games left. I just don't think because of time. I don't think we should actually go and recap the final games.
Do you want me to just go in and recap the season end for the Wings?
I was just gonna recap, kind of like a season review, real quick.
Okay. Well, I can say this, that the state of affairs in Detroit is not well. You've got rumors of the captain being traded. You've got rumors of some animosity between the captain and the GM.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's Larkin was saying he wanted people when Yzerman didn't pull the trigger on anybody, it kind of killed the morale in the locker room because everybody was kind of looking for something. Yzerman pretty much said that Larkin doesn't know what he's doing and, keep it in his lane in a more politically correct way. So, not good. And that's kind of how the season ended anyway. Just straight garbage. They couldn't finish, blown leads. The team just, and I'm not going to sit here and say whose fault it is. And at the end of the day, Detroit's got to do something different. Swapping goalies every other year doesn't work. Switching coaches every other year doesn't work. There has to be some kind of major shakeup. And I get we're trying to build the nucleus. I get we're trying to build that core, build through the draft. Detroit doesn't get a good enough draft pick to do that. We'll get into the lottery, I'm sure, later. But the Wings haven't had a top caliber draft pick in many years. So I get we're still trying to make, turn lemons into lemonade, rather. But something has to change. And, it's going to take a couple years for these youth to come up, Axel. You've got Edvinsson, obviously. He was up all season, but he's still developing. Sider, he's obviously he's their top defenseman. Sherratt, Petrie. I think guys like that, obviously they have their place on the team, but those aren't big name like players. They're not in their prime. They're not, Kane is even on the tail end of his prime. But I'm still trying to figure out like what the play is here. And I'm not understanding it. Like, what was the point of bringing Mrazek in? Like, what did that accomplish? Nothing. It didn't accomplish anything. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just an armchair GM. I'm not sitting here acting like I know anything. I'm just a disgruntled fan. It's time to start seeing some kind of progress. We have been stale the last 3 years, outside looking in, just on the outside looking in, just on the outside looking in. I'd rather tank
and not bad
or
enough
make
to
it.
get a good pick.
No, either make
We'll
it
get
or
that
don't make
later.
it. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what Detroit does. Kosa, he's struggled a little bit here as of late, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We just gotta, hope and pray at this point that our youth are phenomenal. That's pretty much it, D-Law. The Wings had a terrible outcome. They didn't perform when they needed to perform. I think McClellan is a good coach. I like his coaching style. And I think they gotta roll with him. I do. I think they gotta roll with him. But we'll see what next year brings.
It sounds somewhat similar to the Predators. I mean, at least the Predators finished the season on a high note. I mean, the last game was the home game. They beat Dallas 5-1, which I think Dallas was actually resting players anyway, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, Dallas down the stretch going into the playoffs, they were not very good, and that's not a way. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into the playoffs, but that's not a way you want to jump in. But as far as the Predators season, they come in with a high expectations, and as Barry Trotz said, he it didn't live up to their expectations. And I know one thing that he had said in his I guess the end of season comments that GMs usually make, and along with coaches, he said that, and I think he said it too at the beginning of the year. It's fantasy hockey until you become a good team, and that's basically what the Predators had, sort of. Looking back at all the free agency acquisitions, and if it worked right at come out of the gate, we wouldn't be talking about that.
Now I got a quick deal. I gotta interject really quick here. So talking about the Predators, I mean, obviously you brought in Stammer, and you brought in a few guys this offseason. Now, obviously they didn't click. We can agree on that, correct?
Well, in the beginning of the year, I mean, it took almost a whole year. They started get like March or April,
But that's what I mean. Like they just didn't click. So my question is, do you roll with it again in hopes that it clicks and that season was to kind of get them acclimated to each other? Or do you start making moves and not waste your time seeing if it's going to work or not?
well, towards the end, like even February, but March, they were bringing in a lot of their younger players and kind of like mixing, and Brunette was at it again as far as at the beginning he kind of kept his lines, and then he would change them up, and he was changing them up, and then later in the season he kind of like went back and kept them together. But then when they brought all these younger players, they kind of like interject them in with the Stankoses and Marchessaults, and it seemed to work, and I think it helped out the young players. So it looks like they're gonna have some of these younger players along with it. Obviously they've made some trades, the trade deadline, and Brunette's going to be back. Trotz already made that clear. So I'm sounds like Trotz he, he believes in him. I don't know, as a GM, he's because Trotz coached him when Brunette played, with for the Predators way back when they first started. So I don't know if, as a GM, you can be, obviously there's going to be, a connection, like in hockey, it's a short term, or it's a close, family type. Um, but how long do you kind of wait? Does he have one more year? Does he have two? I mean, you can't just keep the coach and hope that and then you got to get the players to fit the system, not the coach. Because obviously some players don't like the coaches, and there's always going to be that. But it's always easier to replace one guy than 15 or 20 guys. So, and as player, I mean, obviously fans are fans, and but they get attached to players, and I mean, I know as a GM, you don't. I mean, you want to keep you want to keep everyone happy. You want to keep the fans happy. You want to keep the players happy, and the owners, and obviously the owners, because you don't keep the owners happy, you're not going to have a job. But it's short saying that you can't keep everyone happy all the time unless you're elite team, and it's always in the cup finals like Florida is, or well was. I don't know what that would be like this year, but um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to. I wouldn't mind seeing him give another chance. Give another year and see what happens, especially if they continue bringing some of these younger players in. But if it's another season like this year, it's time to cut him. I just don't see. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see what Trask will do. As we get closer to the the summer and then the fall, and I don't think he'll be hitting free agency hard like he did last year. I think he learned a lesson. He might just go after that one, maybe two that he thinks. But as far as getting like last season, I don't see them doing that. I think they're gonna pretty much keep what they got. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was just a frustrating season. And before we roll into the playoffs, I just want a final breakdown of the weekly picks. I'm not even going to go into like the last few. I know I got the last two Wings games right, and I actually got the last Predators game right. But I ended at 50% on the Preds side and 50% on the Wings side. So 50% for overall. Ron was 58% on the Wings side and 53% on the Preds side, and you actually had 44 correct on the Preds side to my 41, and you had 48 correct on the Wing side to my 41, which that's another thing that's kind of interesting. I had the same amount of wing correct on the Wings as the Predators with 41. So it's kind of weird how the numbers lined up. But you won the season series this year, so I got to come bounce back next year, and hopefully, hopefully I'll be a lot better next year. It's just like the
Womp
Predators.
womp.
Um,
We should put something up. Gamble. case of beer
So
or that much overdue lunch.
yeah.
The loser buys.
Oh, you never did the predictions. I did predictions
Oh, I
for the
thought I did.
playoffs. Actually, well, there's a playoff one. There's also predictions as far as um the East in the division. I thought Tampa Bay was going to win the Atlantic, and Toronto, and then Florida. I was kind of wrong on that one. Toronto actually won that one. I was right on the Florida part. Florida did end up third. But Toronto, it came down to that last game. Actually, I think Toronto and Tampa Bay had played a couple of games in the regular season. I think Toronto ended up winning that one. In the Metro, I had Washington, which obviously that was a no-brainer. Carolina and New Jersey. I think I might have got that correct. And then I got that correct too. The wild card, I picked Ottawa and Montreal. And I did this before the season is still going on. And then in the West, I had picked Winnipeg, one, Dallas, and Colorado. I think that was actually how it lined out. And then in the Pacific, that was another no-brainer. I had Vegas, Kings, and Edmonton. I think that was right. The wild card, I had them switched. St. Louis was such on hot. They were on a tear at the end of the season. I think it was 12 games, 11 games. I had them wild card 1 and Minnesota wild card 2. If St. Louis could have won or actually, I think it did come out of the last game, or I think actually Minnesota actually got a point in their last game. I think that's how they got the wild card 1, if I remember. But how the first round could have been different if that would have, and that's the thing with positioning, how the first round matchups would have went if, some of these positionings would have been different. So that's just how things are.
That's how the cookie crumbles.
So I know this is I don't know. I got so many notes here. Ovechkin did end up getting the record. He did it in the same. Actually, he tied the record in less games, but he got the record in the same amount of games for. So he actually had
one game on hand.
One. He got. I think he's got 8. What is it? 896. I think he had. And we have getting a couple more goals after he got the record. But so he got 894, which Gretzky had 894 in 1,487 games. Ovechkin got that in 1,486, but he got the record in the same amount of games that Gretzky got, 894. So I guess technically he's one game better. Although there was a lot of empty net goals by Ovechkin, and I don't know how many empty net goals Gretzky had. Probably not very many. And he did. I mean, obviously it's old news, but he got the record at New York Islanders, which kind of hoping he would do it done it at home. It was a power play goal, so I mean, it's fitting that he did it on a power play goal, because that's basically when you think of Ovechkin, you think of power plays in his office. But it was Ilya Sorokin, so that could be a trivia question probably sometime. What goalie did Ovechkin get his record goal time or record goal on? So Sorokin. So before we jump into some playoffs, this is going back a few weeks. Ray Sherrill, who was actually assistant GM of the Predators before he became the GM of the Penguins. So I would say the Predators kind of had a help in him in his career. Obviously, most GMs probably start at the assistant GM, but he ended up winning the Penguins. You're not going to like this. he did win the cup in Pittsburgh in 2008 2009. But that's all. I'll stop there. But that was, I don't remember exactly when. It was a Wednesday, but I don't remember when. But then I believe this was during the regular season. Patrick Waugh put in a 21-year-old goalie after he pulled the starter after he gave up 6 goals. He got ripped for that. Not sure why. I believe it was a regular season game, but yeah, I don't know. And of course, I'm not gonna just go too much into it, but yeah, Yakatron down the stretch, typical. Yeah, trying a lot of dirty plays, dirty hits and stuff like that. But before we jump into playoffs, this is just recently announced, and I think you have a story to tell about this. But Marc-Andre Fleury, as expected, has decided to retire from the NHL. But he will be playing in the World Juniors or not the World Juniors, the World Cup for Canada.
The Olympics?
The World Cup.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really anything crazy. It's just, if you ever follow Fleury or seen any of his antics, like he likes to have fun. He's a pretty down-to-earth seeming guy. And we went to a Detroit Penguins game back, I forget what year it was. It was when he was still in the Penguins. And the bus comes in, all the Penguins are getting off, and Fleury was one of the first guys off, and he signed almost everybody's autograph. Didn't matter what uniform they were wearing. Like, he just made sure that he had time to do it. And I was just watching, and he actually had to have one of the ushers come out and say, "Hey, it's time to get going. You got to get ready." So, I mean, he really maximized his FaceTime with the fans, and I just thought that was really cool because you see him on TV messing around with different players, and he's just a prankster type person. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a neat story because I was able to see it firsthand how he was just one. It's almost like he knew where he came from, if that makes sense. He didn't forget the people that support him, and I don't know. I just thought it was cool how he was hanging out with the crowd.
Yeah, and like you tested, I think little I saw this earlier as far as why he he says I retired and I come home and my kids drive me crazy, so I had to go play. That's what. But talking about the World Cup that he's gonna be playing. It's a little funny, little joke. So I thought that was kind of funny, and as you tested earlier about that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a story. Before we jump into the playoffs, there was a story concerning how the Four Nations and they're really revving it up and everything and saying how great it is, and it wasn't all that. I know at least for one player, I'm sure there might be more players that come out. Charlie McAvoy, he came out as far as the about the Four Nations, how mentally and emotionally, obviously physically, it's gone through since the Four Nations. So it said it cost him a season and his sanity in a lot of ways. So he said this after the after the season.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. As a fan, I want it. As a fan, and that's selfish, and I know that it's frowned upon. I'm sure after the injuries, and I mean, T'Chuk was out for a while, but I enjoyed that hockey. That was some of the best hockey I have seen pretty much ever. It was fast paced. It was aggressive. It was physical. There were fights. There were goals. There was um, you know, defensive hits. There were phenomenal saves. Like it was just all around fun hockey to watch. So I enjoyed that thoroughly. And I get where the players come from or the coaches or whoever, but man, I would watch that all year long.
All right, so I know round one pretty much over now. But so I guess starting with the West, round one it was Winnipeg, St. Louis, Vegas, Minnesota, Dallas, Colorado, and LA and Edmonton. I had picked Winnipeg in 6 games, and I picked Vegas in 5. I picked Colorado in 5 and the Kings in 6. So I got the Winnipeg correct, but not the number of games. I got the Vegas correct. I think that was, I don't remember how many games that went. I was wrong in the Colorado. I mean, the way Dallas started, even when they started the playoffs. And then, of course, LA. They could have won. They should have won. A lot of missed calls.
It's been that way all playoffs. I feel like
The,
it's like blatantly bad. But I
but
mean it's consistently bad for both teams. So it's not like they're biased, if you will.
so we're as far as the first round in the West, we're kind of right. I mean, we got the round some of the game does matchups wrong, but we were both two correct and two wrong. Uh, and then the East we had Washington, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, which was a good series. Carolina, New Jersey, and Tampa Bay, Florida, which was a pretty decent series. I had Washington in 6, and I think that one went. Did that go 6? Or did I go? No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think that went 7. And I actually had Toronto over Ottawa, and then I had Carolina over New Jersey, and I think I had Florida. Actually, Florida did advance, didn't they? So I actually got all 4 right on that one. And let's see, you had Washington winning, so you were correct on that one. You had Toronto, you had Carolina, and you had Florida. So you got all 4 right on the East as well.
Woot woot.
So round 2, we have Winnipeg, Dallas, Edmonton, Vegas, and Carolina, Washington, and Toronto, Washington. So Edmonton, Vegas is playing their game 1 right now. Vegas started out with a 2-0 lead. They did get a 4-minute power play on the high stick. Probably should have been a 2. I don't know. I don't think he got blood. I don't know what they call it for. He must have been caught, but it was one of those where he, just kind of like didn't control a stick.
You got to be in control of your stick. That is a rule.
But he must have got caught. That's probably what it was for. But so I picked Dallas in 6, and I picked Vegas in 6 for that one.
I'm going Winnipeg and Edmonton. Both of those are going 7 games.
And there's been a lot. Well, I don't know if there's been a lot of 7, but there's been a lot of overtime games this season. Carolina Washington game 1 was. I mean, I picked Washington the season series. It could go either way, and I picked Washington in 5, but after watching this game, I almost want to switch to 7, but I'm going to keep it at 5. Um, Carolina did win the game in overtime, and Washington did have one lead, and Carolina was dominating offensively. I mean, they had like 90 some attempted shots. Washington had like 30 some blocks. And it just is going to be it's going to be a hard hitting series. The last 2 games that they played in the regular season, one of them was like the second most penalties to a Detroit Buffalo game. I don't remember that one, but apparently that one had a lot of penalties. I'm sure we talked about it.
That was for you, D-Law.
but game 1 was just. I mean, if the rest of the games are like that, we're in for another great
Oh, it's going to
series.
be. Yeah, I think all the games have been pretty entertaining so far. They've all been pretty physical. They've all been exciting. Yeah, I think it's just been. I think it's been
The
good
one,
hockey.
like the Winnipeg St. Louis series, even Game
Oh, that was
7,
incredible!
it
Double
was just. I
overtime.
mean, St. Louis had that game 2 leads, and they just couldn't finish. But the other round 2 semifinal, Toronto and Florida, that starts tomorrow night, I believe. I got Florida winning in 6.
See, for me, I'm going. Yeah, Washington in 7, Florida in 6.
So yeah, it just these last series. I mean, I think I'm more. I want to see the Winnipeg Dallas series, but I think I'm going to be glued to the Carolina Washington series, judging by game 1. Toronto Florida. I don't know if I will see much of game 1 tomorrow. Maybe the end of it. Um, but that could have been making of another really great series too. I don't know if they really have a lot of hatred for each other like the Carolina Washingtons do, but I think if you're gonna pick
They will
one,
now.
if you're gonna pick, well, going back to the regular season too, but um, if you're gonna pick one series out of those 4, I mean, I would say Carolina Washington. Um, Edmonton, Vegas, and even Winnipeg, Dallas has the makings of a high scoring series. Unless Dallas, their defense, they've if their defense shows up, I mean they are a very good defensive team. I don't when I think of Edmonton, Vegas, I don't really think of defense. Maybe Vegas more so than Edmonton. Um, but even Toronto, Florida, I think that could be a defensive series, even though they got a lot of offensive. Like Toronto, Florida, they're kind of offensive as well. But yeah, as far as low scoring series, it's probably going to be Carolina, Washington by far. I mean, it was 1-0 for a long time before ESPN's column a rookie, Logan Stankoven, who played in Dallas, and he tied it, and then they won in overtime, and it was the way the game was going. Logan Thompson saw a lot of shots, so he was in the game. The way that kind of game going, I would have thought Washington would score because Anderson for Carolina really. I mean, I don't say he
How
was
about
tested.
this? In the wise words of D-Law, the NHL is rigged.
I know the draft is.
Oh, that's
do,
such a
do
hoax.
we want
I
to go?
hate it. I don't even want to talk about it. Like, to be honest with you, D-Law, like, I'm not even kidding. We'll just say the Islanders won it as, like, the 10th team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
that's great.
believe
They deserve it.
Chicago. Let's see, Chicago got number 3.
Of course they did.
Um, and the thing with the Predators had the third worst record, and their percentage to get third was way lower than fourth or fifth. They ended up getting the fifth pick at number 5. The fourth pick is going to be Utah. The third pick is Chicago, and San Jose is number 2, which was by far the worst team all season long. So that's all we're going to discuss. But they did do the lottery live.
It's a joke. It's a joke. I can't even. I didn't even want to watch it. I refused.
I didn't even know when it was really. I thought we were going to talk about the playoffs a little bit more. I just
Whatever you want to talk about there, D-Law, I'm in.
But I think I want to discuss some AHL playoffs. As we know, both our team, the Griffins and the Admirals, are in. The Admirals actually
For now, D-Law.
Well, the Admirals had a first round bye, and I believe the Griffins had a first round bye as well. But they, right now the Griffins are in a hole against Texas 2-0, down 2-0, and then Milwaukee's down 2-0 to Rockford, who had obviously they were both in Milwaukee, and now it's just to Rockford, so they're they were one of the better teams all season long. But as far as the Griffins, their first two games were in Grand Rapids. They had a 6-day gap, which is the largest ever. And it was because there was concerts. Let's see, they played on April 29th. That was game 1. And then they had a concert on the 30th, the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd and 4th. They had some Star Wars thing. And then they play. Oh, that was last night. They played. That's why they're down 2-0. They lost 4-2. So, yeah, I don't know if there would have been a different story. Texas was a really good team all season long, but and the all-time playoff series between the Griffins and the Stars, the Griffins are 2-5. 2-2 at home and 0-3 on the road. So that's a little. It's not very good as far as the playoffs. But the season series, they were 2-1-1 on the road. So maybe that's a little bit of a nice silver lining for them. So, but I don't know.
They can win on the road.
They did in the season. So
yeah,
and they got
it's not over
3. They got 3 of them in Texas, and luckily for the Admirals, they're close enough to Rockford, so they only have to play 2. Well, if they can win one of them, and then the last game is at Milwaukee. But just some of the other series in this one, the Pacific Division out west, they're both tied at 1. And then Laval just beat Cleveland until they advance to the finals. Charlotte is up on the Bruins. Providence 2-0, so it looks like they might advance to the Atlantic Division. And Hershey Bears, which they were were they the top team? And actually, they were the top team. Actually, Laval was the top team in the. Oh, they don't do conferences. But Hershey was the top team in the division. So, but they're down 2 to, what is it, 2 games
To none.
2 games to 1. So one more loss to them, and they're going. They got another one in Lehigh Valley. So, I just wanted to,
These guys better pick it up.
just wanted to mainly mention the Admirals and the Griffins, and they won the Central Division second year in a row, and they did get a couple players down from the Predators, but they had that nice stretch at the end of the season, and I think that little bye, because they went in with a bye week or the bye round, and they had a little bit of a long layoff. I think that they could have, the way they finished really hot, if they could have just kept rolling in the playoffs instead of having that little break, I think that break hurt them more than anything. I think, a hot team like that, they just want to keep playing. So we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll see how it shakes out in the next couple of days here, and hopefully the Griffins can, at least put up a fight.
Yeah, and I guess the Predators and the Wings season's obviously done, and we just look to the playoffs and buckle up and watch some good playoff hockey, and hopefully it won't be another month before we have another show and everything. So I thought it would be a little bit longer of a show, but I guess there's not really much to talk about.
No, it's okay.
So before we wrap up,
Sports fans, watch live on YouTube Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. to get caught up on all the big sports events and news as D-Law breaks down the big stories and news. Follow and subscribe to Sports with D-Law on YouTube at PredWings Podcast, and catch us on Facebook and X at Sports with D-Law.
and just a reminder, the next few weeks are going to be 6:30. So 6:30 instead of 7.
He's pulling an early show.
Yeah. So I guess that's all I got. That's anything you want to add? Anything that I missed?
Nope, you're good.
So check us out on our social media, PredWings Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and X on at PredWings Pod, and always Podbean for our live shows, and email PredWingsPodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in to the PredWings Podcast.
Good night, Hockey Town.
See ya, Smashville.